My name is John Saxton, owner of Skatepark Parks. We build ramps, skate parks, and pretty much anything cool. Today we're going to talk about my 5 favorite ramp projects that I've ever done. In no particular order, I'd say the first one I'll mention would probably be India. We went over there to build a show setup for Thumbs Up Cola, which was, I guess it's a sister company of Coca-Cola over in India, and they just wanted to build a show setup that they could travel all over India and tour with a group of BMXers and parkour enthusiasts. India was a pretty cool experience, and I feel everyone needs to experience at one point, just because everything was an experience. Anything from breakfast to the bathroom routines and everything, driving down the road, there was just every turn you took, it was a new experience. They didn't really know a whole lot about what the ramps were or what to expect, so they didn't really have too much to offer as far as what they were looking for, but it was definitely a challenge working with the wood that they had over there, because it's less than ideal for a ramp builder's standpoint. We built a box jump, 2 quarter pipes, and a whole bunch of parkour boxes and rails and ledges and just things to stack up and move around as they needed to. But everything had to be able to be broken down with just minimal tools that they had, because the guys that were putting them together, I just built the original setup and then I went home and then I had to show them how to break down and set up all these ramps. So I had to make it as easy to go together and as easy to come apart as possible. The tools was another very interesting thing. I couldn't bring any of my own tools, so they told me they were supplying everything, which obviously I was a little hesitant about right out of the gate. And I get there and very rudimentary, to say the least. And they're working with 220 power over there, which is a little scary for me, especially when the extension cord breaks and they literally cut it off and splice it together and jam it into the outlet. Every time. The little area that they had us was not much bigger than this gazebo. This was like the area that I would have to build almost a box jump, full-size box jump, and 2 full-size quarter pipes. So I would build it, disassemble it, and then stuff it in a corner. So I never saw them fully assembled, but I have to assume everything turned out all right, because I never got an email that they were bummed out, so that's a good thing. The next project that, again, in no particular order, the next one that stands out would be Peru. We went down to Peru to build some ramps for Daniel Dares and Red Bull. They had this crazy idea that Daniel and I had talked about years before that, and we kind of chalked it up to just a wild, crazy idea. And apparently he talked to the right people, and they were actually able to make it a reality. So that one was really interesting, because we built ramps on the back of flatbed trucks. So we had 2 flatbed trucks that were about 40 feet long. On one, I just built a big mini ramp with a big flat bottom, and the other I actually built a mini ramp with a spine. And they drove down the road, and you were able to transfer from one to the other and kind of get creative. We were driving down the highway in Lima, Peru, and people were taking pictures and stopped by the side of the road. We actually had police escorts to bring us around, and that was definitely an interesting experience, because I've never seen that before. So it's always cool to be able to do a project that you feel is unique, and that certainly was. One of the things we had to take into consideration was just when you're driving, when you're hitting 1 quarter pipe, that's literally driving away from you as you do in air, and then the other side, the quarter pipe is going into you as you're doing in air. So on one wall, Daniel would have to pull out really hard, and on the other wall, Daniel would almost have to suck in really hard to be able to land back in the tranny, which is kind of crazy. I think everything turned out great. They were happy, Daniel was happy, all things considered. And but yeah, the only thing that was a little bit weird that Daniel had to get used to was driving while riding. Like being on a flatbed while it's moving and doing an air while all of your surroundings are currently moving around you at the same time. He said that took a little getting used to. There was a couple times where he almost threw up, because he said there's just so much going on as he's riding, which could be a little concerning, obviously, but once he got used to it, he was fine. I would probably say number 3 would be Rye Airfield. And the reason I want to talk about them and bring them up in this conversation and this whole project is they were the first ones that really kind of let me loose, just kind of gave me creative control. I really like to think that they're essential in being a part of making me who I am and giving me the opportunities I am to be able to kind of put my name on the map. Rye Airfield is a cool one just because it's the biggest skate park on the East Coast. It's a 50,000 square foot facility, and over the years of working there, I think it's been 10, 12 or so years that we've been working there, just little by little, just changing things out and changing things out. We've almost built the entire skate park. There are a couple ramps that are still original, but just being able to build an entire skate park of that size is pretty cool. And knowing that they're still excited to continue hiring us back to keep building more cool stuff. Number 4, I have to mention Bolivia. Again, it was another project with Daniel Dares and Red Bull. We built an entire skate park out of salt. I don't know what more to say, it's just that was crazy. So the way that kind of came out is in Bolivia, they're the biggest salt flats in the world. All satellites in outer space calibrate the satellites at this salt flat because it's the largest, flattest place on Earth. And the way we built the ramps, instead of just packing salt, digging and packing salt like you would a dirt jump, we kind of took these big construction style saws that you're able to typically saw asphalt with, and we just cut out giant blocks, like basically 18 inches by a foot by about 6 inches or so. And we cut out, I don't know the exact number, but it was around 5,000 or so of these blocks to build the whole skate park. And we just stacked them all up and then kind of chiseled and hammered, and that was pretty much the only thing that would work, just chipping away to make the transitions and the banks and all that stuff. Working with salt was completely different than working with concrete, because concrete you can form to exactly how you want it. Salt, however, because it's already there and you can't, once it chips away, you can't stick it back on. So you kind of have to be a lot more careful with how you chip it away and start to get your forms that you're looking for. We did end up putting a top layer of this powder. It's almost like a mortar that we kind of made. It's like a salt mortar that some of the locals down there recommend that they use sometimes, that we ended up using to try to make things a little bit smoother if we were able to. But there's really not a whole lot you can do with salt. It was a very challenging project. I was satisfied with the results given the time frame that we had to do such a large project. Daniel, he complained, but he's going to complain about everything, so there's only so much you can do. But he did a great job. All things considered, he did great. So at the end of the day, as long as Red Bull and Daniel is happy, I'm beyond happy. I think number 5 for me would be Impact in Providence, Rhode Island, Kevin Robinson's skate park. I think one of the reasons I have to mention that is because it really did play such a big role in my life, because when I grew up in the Boston, Massachusetts area, and the original Impact 20 some odd years ago, that was Kevin's skate park back then, that's what I originally grew up riding. So all these years later, now that I build ramps and skate parks, Kevin reached out to me. I mean, we've known each other. He talked about it over the years, and he finally was ready to pull the trigger and make this project a reality again. So Impact Phase 2, and he was excited to have me on board, and I was blown away that he would even think of me to be involved with such a great project like that. The friends and family that came from that project were unbelievable. Everyone that was in the community that reached out and lent a hand and just was a part of that was such an impressive undertaking to be involved with that whole project, knowing what some of the people had to go through, what some people had to give up, so what some people had to do. And obviously, since it played such a big role in my upbringing, that's where I started riding bikes. So being involved with building the skate park again, the next rendition, I kind of felt that sense of being able to tribute to the next generation of riders if I was able to. There are actually a couple people reaching out for building K-Rob memorial parks in the area, which I think is a great thing. It's obviously a subject that we need to tread lightly on out of respect, obviously, for Kevin and his family. But we already have, we already built a park up there for Kevin. When he was still around, we built a K-Rob skate park in downtown East Providence, which is where he grew up. So just having that skate park implemented and solidified, and people are excited about it. People saw that, and now towns in the surrounding areas are reaching out because they want to do the same thing. They want their version of a K-Rob Memorial skate park. So so it's very cool. No one has officially pulled the trigger on any of these projects yet, but it's good to know that his legacy will live on forever with some of these projects that we're about to get underway on, hopefully. Well, hopefully this is exciting enough for you, and if you're interested enough to see more of our work, feel free to check out some of our pictures at skidmarkparks.com. Make sure to follow us at our Instagram and social medias, Skidmark Parks or Skidmark Skate Parks, and we'll keep building cool stuff if people keep enjoying it. We should put the horseback flip in there somewhere.